Coming up on Mountain News this morning, we give you an update on census participation here in Kentucky and why filling out yours matters. And we talk with an owner of one Letcher County business about how operations look as they reopen under new guidelines. And in Lawrence County, one business has spent the past few months making sure that thousands of children in the area were fed.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning, I'm Lacey Roberts, and thank you for joining me on Mountain News this morning. Today is Wednesday, June 3rd, and it's also Hump Day, and it is going to be a scorcher outside today. Let's bring in Brandon Robinson. If you didn't like those temperatures like you don't, Brandon, yesterday, today is definitely going to be a day you want to be inside.
Yes, and summer is not my time of the year. Listen, I appreciate all the folks who love the heat, but not me. I'm not built for it. But it's coming regardless if we want it or not. So let's take a look and see what's going on this morning. We're looking at temperatures that are still very mild as you head out the door. We're seeing those in the 60s and 70s. 62 Monticello and 62 Middlesboro, Harlan as well. 61 in Jonesboro, our cool spot. 72 in Moorhead, Prestonsburg, and Logan. Some of our warmer spots this morning. Iced coffee, especially what you'll need today to kind of keep you going there. Of course, some folks would drink regular coffee, but maybe just put a little bit of a chill to it this morning. Let it sit for a few minutes, but it's just going to be a hot day. So just remember that as temperatures heat up, to take your heat precautions, stay hydrated. Make sure you take those breaks if you have to work outside. Sunscreen UV index is going to be very high again today, so just kind of keep that in mind as you travel through this Wednesday. The rest of the forecast on the way here in just a little bit. Lacey?
Thank you, Brandon. And for months now, we have told you how important it is to fill out the U.S. Census. WYMT's Madison Pergram has an update on the survey and Eastern Kentucky's response rate.
The United States Census is a survey that only gets filled out every 10 years.
So the census data informs spending on things that are important to our quality of life. Those would include health care, our highways and highway repairs, daycares.
Helene Longton, a media specialist with the U.S. Census, says their goal is to reach every citizen.
Over the past couple of weeks, the U.S. Census has been delivering paper forms to houses in Eastern Kentucky who don't get the U.S. mail at their home to make it convenient for them.
The paper forms also help those without internet access.
Or some parts of Eastern Kentucky, there's not a lot of access to broadband, and that is exacerbated by the fact that libraries are closed during the COVID-19 crisis.
Counties across our region have varying response rates.
A couple of counties that, are as low as 19-20%. Owsley County is at 19.5. Leslie is at 20.8. We've got a bunch who are in the 30s, some in the 40s.
It does not matter how you fill it out, mail, phone, or online, as long as it gets completed and returned.
Whatever works for you, it doesn't matter. They're all good ways to go about it. Fill out the census and let the federal government know you're there.
Making sure you are counted and your community gets the funding it deserves. Madison Pergram, WYMT Mountain News.
And the last day to fill out the census is October 31st. The state of Kentucky's response rate is 64.1%, and the state is 13th in the nation in its daily response rate. Now, Governor Andy Beshear announced 155 new COVID-19 cases and 3 new deaths last night. The state total of cases sits at more than 10,000. 442 people have died from the virus, and healthcare officials announced a new death in Clay County yesterday, the first since the virus was reported there. And do you have a child needing to take their learner's permit test? Well, good news. Permit testing resumed yesterday across Kentucky. And a new system following CDC guidelines, appointments can now be made by calling Kentucky State Police. KSP encourages people to check their website often for updates on when more testing becomes available. An announcement about road testing is expected sometime in July. You can find a complete list of the counties offering permit testing and their contact information on our website at WYMT.com. And a Supreme Court decision issued last week agreed with Governor Beshear's order to limit mass gatherings due to the pandemic. That decision was made after churches challenged to California's order to limit gatherings, saying state officials have the freedom to make decisions to protect public health. Chief Justice John Roberts said that federal courts should not second-guess states' temporary emergency measures that they put into place. And at last check, the number of U.S. weekly job claims totaled more than 2 million, and more than 30% of those claims come from the state of Kentucky. While some have received benefits, others have received none. Terry Priest is one of them. He lives in Lawrence County and is self-employed. Since closing down his business under order of Governor Beshear, he has not received an income in more than 3 months. I talked with him yesterday, and now we share his story.
Says I'm overdrawn at the bank and there's $30. So for all intents and purposes, that's not even mine. I've been 5 years working on my business. The end of January with no income. I operate a business called The Final Detail. Recondition them and make the used cars look better. I work a territory from Pikeville, Kentucky to Chillicothe, Ohio, and from Charleston, West Virginia to Lexington. One dealership tell me flat out, we're going to move everything in-house because business is so bad. Now, I started trying to file the 1st of April. Couldn't get through. I don't own a computer. Right there's all I've got. You cannot file for unemployment on a cell phone. I've got a list of phone numbers at home, 35, 40 numbers for different counties, different areas, trying to get somebody to call me back or to answer the phone. I haven't paid on my car insurance in 3 months. I haven't paid an electric bill in 4 months. I have cut corners every place I can cut them. I'd take a job working unemployment claims right now. We can't keep doing this. There's people going hungry.
Priest says that he tries to find odd jobs so that he can buy propane for his stove and electric. Many businesses are opening for the first time in months and figuring out what everyday operations will now look like. One of those is a Letcher County Recreation Center, which opened Monday. But they still have many restrictions, hygiene requirements, and half of what they offer is still off limits. Right now, only the walking track, weight room, and party rooms are open. But owner Jeremiah Johnson says it is a much-needed step in the right direction as he is able to bring back some previously laid-off employees.
They're glad to be back, and we're glad to have them back. It's not like there was another job out there to go apply for. You know, everybody was the same predicament that we were of laying off and not knowing what was going to happen in the future.
The rec center is open every day. The bowling alley, basketball courts, and play area will not open for several weeks. And all the county parks are now open in Letcher County after the county had closed them due to COVID-19. Some of the parks had stayed open, but picnic shelters and walking trails were closed. Now all the picnic areas are open, but Judge Executive Terry Adams is asking people to not have large gatherings and to follow the guidelines of no more than 10 people.
We've had several calls on the parks and when we was going to open them, and we were just going by the governor's guidelines and trying to accommodate when we could.
Now, the basketball courts will still be closed as well as the playground equipment. Adams says he does not know when playgrounds will reopen. Campgrounds will be closed until next Thursday. And during the past couple of months, one business in Lawrence County has fed thousands of children in the area. Their name is unique and their food is made on the spot. Well, whichever spot they are in that day. WYMT's Connor James has the story of one relatively new business and their push to provide a sense of community.
Near downtown Louisa, this is usually a pretty constant sound.
It kind of started out as a little side thing, a little hobby.
Former Lawrence County boys basketball coach Travis York is one of the 3 co-owners who kick-started Hillbilly Hibachi. In the name itself, it's pretty self-explanatory what they sell.
And they'll say, you know, is this deer meat or squirrel or, no, it's it's chicken and steak and shrimp, you know. So
Several years ago, this wasn't even a thought, though.
it's one of those things where you're talking about 3 guys who had 0 culinary experience, and even more importantly, 0 business experience.
But in the last year or so, their business has expanded. Now 2 trailers travel, but amid COVID, for multiple months, they stayed put at this spot here, only taking to the cars that stopped by. But in that time, they were also doing something else.
It's right at 3,000 kids that we fed since the whole quarantine has started.
And it's not something they embarked on their own. In the first 2 weeks alone of quarantining across the Commonwealth, they fed 1,000 kids. In their 1.5 years of operation, they've held many different fundraisers.
It's really blessed us too, because to see those kids get help, but it's also a lot of people, we've got a lot of support from the community and a lot of donations, so it wasn't just us making a sacrifice, the community has supported that cause as well.
And as restrictions lift, they have been able to travel around again, but they say wherever they go,
the Lord's blessed us, and we're going to continue to try to bless others with that.
community is still their main focus. In Louisa, Connor James, WYMT Mountain News.
And we have the link to Hillbilly Hibachi's Facebook page on our website, and that's where they post the locations that they will be at regularly. And just ahead on Mountain News this morning, the Poke Salad Festival is underway in Harlan County after making some large changes.
And the forecast for the next couple of days for the festival and everything else going on, pretty steamy. We'll take a look at the forecast coming up in about 3 minutes.